From logos and branding to advertisements, books, and magazines, sports, media, applications, and websites, typography is a key element to the language of graphic design that is often overlooked and taken for granted. Hey, it's Tucker from Fontastic. Recently I interviewed Ross McClain, who is the head of Furman University's art department. So, Dr. McClain, why is typography important to graphic design?
Okay, so here's the thing about type. It's a great question. Type is like a ubiquitous thing that we take for granted. It's all over us, all the time, right? So it shapes our language, it shapes how we communicate, and it is our spoken word in a written language. So there's a rich history about it. It's been with us forever. So that's why type is important, and the little nuances of it make it even more so important. So if you look at some of these projects, we're talking about narratives here, right? So a certain typeface, so you got two types of typefaces that are out there. There's a serif and a sans serif, right? So amongst those there are thousands of typefaces, and they all have their own attitudes and influences and how they look on paper and how they look on the screen and so forth. So there's tons of choices for us. And there's scientific evidence on which ones look better than others. So there's a lot to digest. So we're looking at some of these projects, and these are all narratives, and we're making type choices. We got one that's more of a family style, and then one that's more of a historical reference from Britain. So there are certain typefaces that just come out of Britain and tell that narrative and so forth. So they've been with us for a long time, and the technology has evolved and adapted. We started from typefaces that were just these little keys, the movable press, to those computers over there, to the phone that you have in your hand. And all of it is relevant. So we've gone from these little, nice little type pieces of type, movable type, to the digital stuff.
As you may have heard from Dr. McClain, typography shapes the way we communicate within a written language. The combination of serif and sans serif stylizations lead to limitless possibilities of creative expression. Here are some examples of my favorite uses of typography. Okay, so this is a book. This font was, I believe, made in the 70s, and this book also came out in the 70s. I really like how in graphic design you have the ability to find old fonts and old forms of typography and download them and use them in your designs today. It's a very stylized font, like the font I showed earlier with the DaVita font. It really just adds to this sort of look and style. Even fonts like this, where just the stylization of the logo of the actual book brand, all very cool, and kind of, it gives it a vibe that I think sometimes a lot of design lacks. Even something as stylized as this, where you have just lines and just these sharp edges, it really adds to the overall effect that the typography and the design has on the actual book. I would say that also the way it's designed, the way the text is incorporated, and everything along those lines is attracting a particular audience, which I think is super important for typography itself. Because I think the main point of a graphic design that includes typography is to attract an audience and have people actually read it. So yeah, that's a really cool example. Did you like what you saw? Stay tuned for a full video where I showcase my personal collection of expressive forms of typography. If you appreciated the video and want more, head to the description to check out my website and blog. This is Tucker McKillop from Fontastic. See you next time.